It's critical to set clear expectations. So maybe they're your boss or they're your primary investigator. Have clear, time-bound goals. This helps everybody stay aligned. And beyond the big picture, being respectful and prepared and transparent in meetings builds trust. It's all about being collaborative and being clear.
Hi everyone, welcome. Today we're talking about building strong relationships with your advisor as a doctoral student in engineering. I'm Luka, and I'm excited to be here with Marcy Bullock, who has guided countless grad students through the ups and downs of research and mentorship. Thanks for being here, Marcy.
Thanks, Luka. This is a really important conversation, and I want to just focus on one word, which is intentional. Be very intentional about building relationships with all the people you're surrounded by. It could be your advisor, your committee, and make sure that you do that on a weekly basis. You put the effort in because it can make such a big difference in your entire experience while you're here on our campus and actually in your future career too, to open doors.
Well, thank you for starting with that, Marcy. First, let's talk about communication styles. First of all, what really is a communication style, and how do you get to know your advisor's communication style without stepping on toes?
The advisor's communication style will vary depending on who you are interacting with, just because we all have unique fingerprints and we all have unique personalities. So first of all, observe them. Notice how they respond. Do they like emails? Do they like quick chats by the water cooler in person? Or is it important to have a scheduled meeting? You can observe that, and don't even be afraid to ask them something as simple as, do you prefer updates via email or in person? That can save a lot of misunderstandings. And I think communication styles are very important in the workplace. I had a boss once who 100% ignored every email I sent him. And I would think, oh, good, that's off my plate now. I mailed that over to him. But his idea was, I'm overwhelmed with email. If it's important enough, then you'll actually stand in my doorway and ask me. And that took me a while to get used to.
Yeah, I think communication styles really applies to more than just an advisor relationship. It applies to bosses, students, or even coworkers as well.
Yeah, it applies to a lot of different relationships. Like, I remember a student that I was working with who was very hesitant to bother me. And he was thinking, oh, she's busy. And he would wait days trying to solve a problem on his own. And once I invited him to coffee and asked him about his preferred communication style, I realized that he appreciated that initiative and he started checking in more regularly. And that made our work a lot smoother so that he didn't make mistakes along the way and we could talk about things. So I was super open to that, but not everybody is.
So it's good to keep in mind that maybe some things just get lost in the communication network and don't come across as well as you think they do. So after you've communicated with your advisor, found the best way to do so, how do you build some rapport with your advisor?
I think that is a great question. Building rapport. So you kind of know their style, you've observed a little bit. I would start by understanding their strengths and blind spots. We all have them. Some advisors are very structured and very direct, and feedback often reflects that style, not you personally. So if they're really direct with you and say, it's so important for you to come on time to meetings, don't take that as a personal affront that they're saying you're lazy. Pay attention to what energizes them and what drains them, and show some empathy, adapting your approach. That can create a positive, collaborative environment.
That makes sense. So it's really about being able to adapt to new surroundings and understand the other side of things.
Yeah, and it can also relate to the culture you come from. For example, there are certain cultures who are very quiet and very respectful, and those are qualities that they've been raised with. They are customs that they have. And one of the students who had that background rarely spoke up in a meeting with me. And I encouraged her to share one idea per meeting. I just said, take a small step. And over time, she got more confident and the ideas she contributed were fantastic. So it's really important that there's a safe space between you and the people you're building relationships with. And they understand what your background is and why you might be behaving a certain way. Like it could even be your birth order. Where are you in the birth order of your family?
I'm the youngest.
Okay, you're the baby. So it may be that like the older siblings dominated and you kind of followed in their pathway. Well, that's going to affect your communication style. So we have so many different identities. And the key is really getting to know the people that you're surrounded by and understanding them and taking time to care about them as humans.
You could say that a lot of that is understanding the goals and ideals or values of other people as well, and understanding that they might not be the exact same as your own. But talking about goals, we've talked a lot about goals on this podcast, but what are some types of goals that you can make with your advisor, not just personal goals?
Right. So you're developing this relationship, you've connected with this person. It's critical to set clear expectations. So whenever you're in a subordinate role and someone is like in the power position over you, maybe they're your boss or they're your primary investigator, have clear time-bound goals, like finishing a dissertation by a certain date. This helps everybody stay aligned and beyond the big picture, being respectful and prepared and transparent in meetings builds trust. If you need accommodations, like leaving at a specific time because you have to pick someone up from childcare, whatever the reason is, just communicate that up front. It's all about being collaborative and being clear because they can't read your mind and they don't know why you're leaving at 4 o'clock unless you tell them that ahead of time.
And I think that also applies somewhat to personal goals as well, about being as clear and understanding as possible when it comes to your goals. But I think that's extrapolated when you're trying to collaborate with your advisor and make goals between the two of you.
Yeah, extrapolating it and setting those goals together, that builds trust, and that can help you avoid more misunderstandings and have less conflicts.
But sometimes those misunderstandings do occur, and sometimes there are some problems in the workplace, and this is inevitable. But how should we handle them without damaging any relationships?
So the conflicts, a lot of people avoid them. Are you an avoider of conflicts or do you confront them?
I tend to avoid them just a little bit.
And I definitely think that comes a lot from how we are raised as well. So some people are like, I'm out there, I'm ready to dive in and focus on what went wrong. And other people are like, let's just sweep that under the carpet in our family. We're going to pretend like everything is okay. So I recommend in a professional setting, it is similar to a family because we spend so much time together, being tactful and just pausing before we react in a conflict situation. You might need to clarify the situation and propose a solution. And always just keep in mind what your shared goals are. You both share goals together rather than the actual mistake that happened and blaming people and the misstep and the failure. Those are all normal because we are human beings learning and growing and we're not going to be perfect. So a little story on this is a student came to me really frustrated because they felt like the feedback that they received from me was sharp and they felt like it was harsh. And I'll never forget this because I said to myself, I thought I was being really direct, but I said to the student, maybe you could reframe what I said to you. Instead of taking it as criticism, look at what you can improve and how to implement it. And she started seeing feedback as guidance, not judgment. But it's sometimes hard when people are critical of you. You want to defend yourself.
I think really the biggest part of it is communication, and some things just get lost in the airways between two people, and that can result in some misunderstandings and some conflict. Do you think communication is something that you as a student have to work on, or is it kind of a two-way street that is a collaborative effort between you and your advisor?
I think everyone's always working on communication because not everyone is like you and they don't behave the same way you do. But when you're in the subordinate role, it's really on you to be the observer and try to communicate the way that person wants to be communicated to, if that makes sense. Like one of my bosses, I remember, was very data focused. And I might feel like I had a great day today and I just want to go tell my boss, I counseled the student. I think I made a difference in their life. And what my boss really cared about was how many companies came to the career fair. All right. So it doesn't serve me to go in and talk about something that is not an important stake in their stakeholder process. It is much better for me to talk about what they think is important.
So after finding some common ground of communication between you and your advisor, what are some other ways we can look to build our broader network?
Right. So if you're building your broader network, it's so important to think about the different people in your life that will serve different roles on a board of directors table. You're the CEO and everybody's sitting around your boardroom table, and it's your life. So you get to pick who's sitting there. You want someone that can cheer you on. You want someone that's a technical expert. You want a mentor who can give perspective. And it's so important to actively nurture this relationship, all of those relationships. I can't stress that enough. You have to be the one, because you're the junior person. You're the person growing and learning and trying to get into that first role after you finish your degree. So invite people to coffee, ask thoughtful questions. Don't be afraid to seek guidance from people you admire. You might think, I don't have time for that. I've got an exam coming up. I want to go to the football game. Whatever is coming up is important to you. But this relationship building piece is going to pay off dividends for you in the future, because people like to have these connections and they like to tell other people who they recommend for roles based on the fact that you have that relationship. And if they've never had a cup of coffee with you and you've just sat in the back row of the class, there's nothing they can say about you.
And do you think those kinds of relationships come about naturally as you go through your career and through school? Or is it more intentional that you have to go out looking for these relationships, invite people over to have coffee, things like that?
It does not fall in your lap. No, no one's going to knock on your door and say, hey, what are you doing? You want to go over to Lucky Tree and grab a coffee? It's really on you to maybe even just make your own spreadsheet and think, every month, I want to meet 2 new people. I want to add them to my LinkedIn profile, but not just social media presence-wise, because I can nurture the relationship. I can send them an article about something they're interested in, and then we can have face-to-face conversations where we look each other in the eye and we shake hands in 3 dimension.
And where do these kinds of relationships come from? Should you look into peers, advisors, faculty, professors? Where can you find those kinds of relationships?
I'd say all of the above. I usually say friends and family are a great place to start because they all know people, and also alumni network. Don't forget that you can go on to LinkedIn and just click on the NC State University alumni link, and you can do a filter for whatever interest area you have with keywords. What's the worst thing that can happen? You reach out to someone and say, I'm really excited about that article you just published. I'd love to grab a Zoom tea or a cup of coffee if they're local. That's how you can focus on that.
Well, thank you, Marcy. This conversation has been very insightful when it comes to building relationships and a broader network of relationships, not just those with your advisor. Do you have any final tips that you want to share?
Yeah, just keep building those intentional relationships, listen actively, set clear goals, respect boundaries, and celebrate milestones along the way. Because being a student is challenging, but strong relationships make the journey rewarding, and they help you thrive both personally and professionally.